Hey everybody, this is Tina Capricorn here, and I am live for What's Your Superpower? We're going to get AMC on here in just a second. Let me see if I can invite her. I think I just invited her. Let's see what happens here. What's your superpower? This is a live Instagram show. Hello, Jim. This is a live show. Oh, yeah. Hello. I'm so excited to see you.
You too. We've been talking this up so much for the last month. It's like it's finally
It's finally here. I remember when we talked about it in I think July too.
hmm
Kind of crazy to think about. Can you hear me okay? Everything
Yep.
feel good?
Yep. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Good.
I think we can just go ahead and get started. Um,
Okay.
if you're ready, you got your water and stuff.
Yes. That's one thing I've learned with interviews and stuff. It's like always have water by
Always have
hand
a
because
little bit
you're
of
like,
water.
yeah, it's like I'm
Yeah.
dying of thirst.
Yes, totally. All right. Well, welcome to What's Your Superpower? Um,
Alive.
Go ahead.
Live superhero talk show hosted by me, A.M. McPherson.
And me, Tina Capricorn. This is our premiere episode. We're so excited that you're all watching with us. Thanks for waving. Thanks for tuning in. You have so many things you could be doing, but you're here listening to us nerd out about superheroes. So there must be something super awesome about it. Um, I just wanted to ask you, though, AM, first, before we get started, what's your superpower?
If I had to pick a superpower, I think it would be the power of just being clumsy. Like, I would trip, and then someone else would trip over me, and then it would just cause all this tripping, and I would take everybody down. So we're all tripping over each other, all because I tripped over something. Or
Mhm.
you need something broken? I can break that for you, no problem. You
No
need something
problem.
dropped? I got that for you. I'll drop it again and again. I'll throw it in the trash and miss it 5 times.
So you got the chaos power. If you need
Yes.
to, if we need to bungle a burglary or some live event, you're the person to call. That's your superpower. That's
I
awesome.
throw something and somehow that traps the villain, and it's like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. That works.
Totally.
How about you? What would you say your superpower is?
I have to say, I really pride myself among my family members as being the person that can find things. Like
Uh,
if you don't know where it is, ask me. I probably know where it is, and I have no idea how it works. But I'm like, it's downstairs in the second door to your left, underneath you know what I mean? And I don't know how I know it, but I know it. So I'm like, if only it worked outside of my house, you know? It only
yeah,
works in my house. I haven't been able to expand my powers yet, but in my house, I'm the finder of all things for sure, for sure.
it's that sixth sense.
Yeah, and I think too, you and I are both indie authors, and we're also moms. And I think I just want to shout out all the moms because that's a superpower, just being a mom. Like,
Yeah, I agree, 100%. Today was my son's first day of preschool, and
oh wow,
that was. I didn't expect how emotional it would be, but it didn't help that we had to just like drive up and let him get out, and the teachers took him
oh,
in. So I need to give him like a last second hug, and I was just like, oh my
that's
god.
a huge
But yeah,
day.
mom superheroes all the way.
All the way. Moms are totally superheroes, and I just wanted to start that out from the beginning that moms are superheroes. Um, Speaking of indie author mom superheroes, you have your first book coming out, The Guardian's Daughter. It's a superhero romance book. It's available for pre-order right now. Is there anything else reviewers should know about your book that's coming out September 21st?
September 21st. Yeah, it takes place in a world full of abilities where two people fall in love, not knowing one's hiding a heartbreaking secret from the other. It is a YA romance, so it's not very steamy, but it's kind of a slow burn romance. But if you love teenage angst and superhero colleges, it's definitely the book for you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Totally.
you actually just won the free copy of my
I
contest on Sunday.
know.
I was
I
like, oh
can't
my
believe
god,
it.
Tina! was like, oh, perfect.
I never win. I enter so many of these book giveaways on Instagram to be supportive, but also because I'm like, hey, I don't have a lot of paper copies of books. I'm a Kindle reader, and
Yeah.
I am so delighted that I get a physical copy of your first book. First books are the hardest books to get out there. They're the most labor of love. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
just so excited to get your first book.
Awesome.
It's going to be awesome. Um,
Yeah.
and then my first book is coming out, or my next book is coming out November 1st. My second book is coming out November 1st. That's how it goes, right? Shadow Glass, Time Magic, Blood Magic. And also September 20th, the day before your release, if you subscribe to my Cosmic newsletter, you'll get half of the book for free.
I'm
So,
so excited to get that first half for free. Let me just say, when I saw that, I was like, yes. Oh my
yeah.
gosh. Yeah.
Free is the
That's so
magic
cool.
number, especially if you're finding out on an indie and you haven't read them before. It's so great to get some free part of their work just to kind of see, is this indie going to fit me? Is this the kind of writing
Yeah.
style I like? So I'm super excited to release that. And I feel like, too, like one of the reasons that What's Your Superpower for both of us was such a big deal is it's like superheroes are such a big part of our fandom, and it has to also go into our writing. And so I just want to jump right into our top three superheroes, which is the subject for tonight, and just kind of get your 2 cents too. Do you feel like anyone in your top three list, did it influence? Did any of that influence the Guardian's Daughter? Anyone in your top three?
See, I have to say there's probably a little bit from each in certain different aspects, because I did
Mhm.
try to create a lot of unique abilities, but I took
Mhm.
ideas from everybody else. But yeah, we'll go ahead and just get into my number three, which actually would be Superman.
Yes,
Um, I have to say
Clark Kent.
this was hard. This is actually the Clark Kent from Smallville.
Yeah.
I actually took him out in a little box. I was like, oh my gosh, finally him.
Wow, thank you for doing that. That's been fun.
It was a hard pick between him and Batman, because me and I love Batman, but my husband and I, we bonded over our love of Batman. That was actually like the first conversation we had. But Smallville was probably like my hardcore first love
Yeah.
of superheroes that really got me into it. And I of
Mhm.
course love Tom Welling. I really enjoyed Henry Cavill as the newest Superman. I enjoyed aspects of other people who play Superman. I haven't seen really much of the newer one, but he's
Mhm.
always just been one that's always been in the background. Actually, my shirt, I don't know if you guys can see it. It's like Starry Night.
Yes, we both wore superhero shirts. I wore my Vision and Scarlet Witch shirt, so I'm
Oh,
glad that we
yeah,
dressed for the occasion. No big
I
deal.
love it. But he wasn't. I'm surprised he wasn't higher on my list. But one thing about Superman, like I've admired, but at the same time that holds me back a little bit from like being like absolutely making him my favorite. Is sometimes he's just too good. Where
Mhm.
there's different versions of him, of course, where he goes dark, but overall Superman's always just like he's very very good,
Mhm.
and I'm just like I like a little more bad in my guys sometimes.
Yeah,
So
there's nothing wrong with that.
yeah.
Um, have you read any of the alternate like storylines for Superman, like Red Sun or anything like that? Um,
I haven't read Red Sun, but what is it? I'm not. There's the one where he gets tricked into killing Lois Lane from the Joker. I think it's like
oh,
the Killing Joke.
the Killing Joke, yeah, or
He
that,
gets to kill. I
yeah.
think that's it.
That might be it. I know there's a lot of brutality in The Killing Joke. I've seen that
Yeah,
one a few times. The DC, by the way, anyone watching, the DC animated movies are amazing. They make up
yeah.
for what they don't do very well in the live action movies. Their animated movies are amazing. My favorite DC animated is probably the Flashpoint Paradox. I don't know
Hmm.
if you've seen that one, but it like kind of resets the timeline. It has to do with time travel, so of course I like it. So Superman's your number three. Who's your number
Hmm.
two?
My number two is actually Spider-Man.
Yes, Peter Parker.
Yes. I just I love both, the nerdy aspects, but also he's this badass, hero in so many things, and he goes through so much loss and tragedy. But he actually, Smallville was like my first hardcore love, but Spider-Man was actually what kind of got me a little interested in heroes to begin with, because I always remember seeing the Tobey Maguire
Mhm.
Spider-Man in theater and going home being like, I want to be Spider-Man, and I was trying so hard to get a web to shoot out of my hand so I could like swing from my porches, because that's you can do that in real life,
Yeah.
But
Oh,
like
totally.
especially Into the Spider-Verse, Tom Holland. I really enjoyed Toby back in the days. Like with the first one, I
Hmm.
really loved it. The second one, I was satisfied enough with it. But the third one came out, and I was kind of like, I don't know how to feel about this, but not too
Yeah.
happy to it. And I did actually enjoy the Andrew Garfield ones. I
Okay.
really loved Emma Stone as Gwen. I thought she made a great Gwen.
Hmm.
Um, but I have to admit, I love Tom Holland more. Am I saying that right? Is that his name?
Yes. Tom
Is
Holland.
it, for some
Yeah, that's right. I think that's right.
okay,
Or I've been saying it
like,
wrong forever. We'll say it wrong
like
together.
I think that's right. Sometimes I get names flip flop, and I'm like, wait, I need like a graph, like that guy who's all
Right?
crazy. Like I think this is who
All
it is.
all the
Like I
Spider-Mans.
recognize actors in other movies, like being like, oh, that's like, oh, I can't even think of anybody, but I'm like, oh, that's so and so from that movie, not actually the actor's name, just what other
Yeah.
roles they play.
Yeah, that's how I identify actors too. Hey, if you do a
Yeah,
good job, then that's how I remember you. I guess you've done a really good job. You know what I mean? If I file you away
yeah.
in my mind
Hmm.
as the role you played. I have to say, I think Tom Holland brought me back into the Spider-Verse.
Oh,
I got
really?
in with Maguire and I skipped Andrew Garfield because I felt oversaturated by the movies. And again,
Hmm.
the Spider-Man early movies, especially Sam Raimi when he made them, were very different from what the MCU is doing. Like the night, I mean, it was the 90s, so they're
Yeah.
like even they didn't even have the special effects, they need that they can do now that make it look so effortless. We forget
Yeah.
how easy it is now to create all the amazing things that we see in movies that in the 90s they really could do, which is why they come off as a
Yeah.
little bit campy. um
But that's like the old Superman movies. You know what I mean? Like, you love them, some of them for nostalgic purposes, but
you're
there's
like
just
going
like I
like
have a hard
this
time
and ears
watching.
to
Yeah,
one
I
side.
have a hard time watching them. So I'm just like, oh, this is so bad.
Yeah,
But that's what. But back in the day, though, this was amazing. This is
yeah,
what they're able to do. But we're so spoiled about, they can just do anything nowadays and make it look so realistic. You're just
effortless
like,
and so
yeah. I mean,
realistic, you know
and I'm
but
so
yeah, I really
excited.
like Tom Holland. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no,
Sorry.
no, you're fine. No, he's great. I'm so excited for the new Spider-Man and the
So,
whole multiverse. Oh my gosh, this is horrible. I forget the guy who played. I had his name earlier. Now I completely forget it too. The guy who played the Green Goblin in the
oh
Tobey Maguire
yeah.
Spider-Man.
Oh, I know his name too. He's in like a
Oh my
million
gosh.
movies. My husband
But
would
when I
really
heard
disappointed
his
I can't
laugh
think
and
of
they showed like the Green Goblin grenade that are
his name.
exactly how they were in the Tobey Maguire movies, I was like, oh yes. I mean, I know everyone was excited about Doc Ock, which I'm of course
William
excited about
Dafoe.
that. But
Yeah,
I actually loved the Green Goblin from the first one. I just thought he was so perfect, and when I just heard that laugh, like I literally got goosebumps. Like,
yeah.
yes, this is
You and a lot of
amazing.
other Spidey folks. William Dafoe is the name of the
Yeah,
actor. He's been in a million
that's
things.
it.
He's an amazing character actor. I'm so excited that they're bringing back some villains from the original Spider-Man. I'm
Yeah,
a sucker for a villain. There's no secret that I'm excited about next week because it's
yeah,
villains. But yeah, that's that total like that new preview for the new Spider-Man that has like Doctor Strange, and we're really kind of the MCU is really dipping their toe into the multiverse,
mm-hmm.
and I'm so excited about that.
Yeah. So Peter, it's like
Yeah,
ah,
yeah, yeah, totally, totally.
yeah,
Um, let's see, where are we? You said so. Number three is Superman. Number two is Spider-Man.
yes.
So one thing that is fun. So your number three and my number three actually know each other because my number three is dun 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 Doctor Manhattan.
Oh,
Woo! From The
nice.
Watchmen. I think that character for me is the one that was like, I can have a really weird character that doesn't perceive reality like any of the other characters. I think is one
Yeah.
of the reasons I love Dr. Manhattan. And if for anyone not familiar, Dr. Manhattan is a character, basically this atomic physicist that goes in a lab and there's an accident, of course, the trope of the accident. And he basically gets disassembled and he reassembles his consciousness and he becomes basically a multidimensional being that experiences time simultaneously. And so one of the reactions to people that knew him before he became a demigod basically is like, you seem so unemotional. And he's like, well, I'm talking to you now and in the past and in the future. So that's one of the cool things about it. But Dr. Manhattan and Superman actually had a whole comic, I think, story. He's the Blue Man. DM Sontag just asked, is he the Blue Man? He's the Blue Man
Yeah.
that sometimes wears black Speedos. I think towards the end of his whole comic book run, he was basically done with clothes altogether because his mind is beyond the physical at this point. He abandoned Earth for a while and went and experimented in a new galaxy or universe. I mean, he's crazy. You can go and look up on the DC fandom page. His powers are just insane. But for me, it was the idea that you can create this post-human consciousness character and have him, like, just the idea that it's basically this multidimensional being, but is having form in front of you. So anyone familiar with my work knows that that kind of stuff is very fascinating and nerdy for me.
It's definitely cool. I have to admit, I knew a little bit more about Watchmen years ago when the first movie came out. Because I have to admit, I've always just been much more bigger into the movies of everything.
Yes.
It's just not what it worked. But when the movie came out, I watched it and I was like, okay, this is a whole badass universe. And, I looked at a little bit more back, but that was so long ago. But I know, like, Dr. Manhattan, though, I just remember that character because, like you said, he's just so godly, and it's because he's a multi-universe person pretty much, and he's intense. Like, I wouldn't want to mess with him on a bad day because
and the Watchmen series is a very gritty, dark take on comic books. The whole series and the storyline. Talk about a trigger warning. There is rape and there's war and there are very mature concepts in the Watchmen. But it's a brilliant piece of storytelling. And back to your point about in the movies and stuff, the Watchmen movie came out, I think, in the 90s, but they also recently had an HBO series that was it the 90s? Maybe it was the early 2000s. It's been a minute.
Yeah, about early 2000s.
But
in the 90s, my mom would not have let me watch that.
Right, probably not.
I watched that without my mom around.
It's really long too. It's like an incredibly long.
Yeah.
But the new, like, I think it's like the series that's on HBO Max that's in the Watchmen universe. Highly recommend anyone to watch that. This character is involved. I can't say anything more than that because timey-wimey. But really great revisiting the Watchmen characters and all of that. And it's set several years after the original, I guess, plot points in the, like, classic Watchmen stuff that I think was obviously made into the TV show. At least it hit the full plot points that I read earlier today because I wanted to brush up. And then my second one is one that we're all familiar with, and that is, I like to, like, see their secret names. Aurora Monroe, which is Storm from the X-Men.
Storm, yeah, she's such a badass.
She's so cool. She's so cool. And, like, just the highlights of this character, and again, as a writer too, and I'm sure you get this too, like, now looking at these characters that I've loved for so long, but looking at them as a writer and how I develop story just makes it so different. But Storm, checks a lot of the tropes box. She's orphaned, like Harry Potter, like some other like Batman, a lot of superheroes have the orphan trope, so she was orphaned.
I have no idea about the orphan trope at all in my story. Not at all.
That doesn't happen in the Guardian's Daughter?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Nah. Totally not.
But, Storm's mom is from a long line of Kenyan priestesses, and she also has a photojournalist for a dad. She's born actually in Manhattan, and then they move back to Cairo, and her parents are killed in a plane accident. I did not know that. I just found that out today. But,
Learn something new every day, right?
yeah. And then also another thing I learned today, and I've been a Storm fan for, like, I used to watch her on Saturday morning cartoons. She actually rescued T'Challa, and they had a little bit of a teenage love affair in some early Marvel comics. You know, she rescued him.
Huh?
She rescued him too, and it was just like, oh, I'm a king, and I'm going to be a king one day. And she's like, I got stuff to do too, so it didn't work out. But it was like, I imagined it was like summer loving had me a blast, and like she literally blasted with some like lightning or something. It was that kind of summer loving between her and T'Challa.
They had that spark.
They had that spark.
I'm not gonna actually. Some of the aspects I have for Aiden, one of the main male character in my book, some of the physical aspects were inspired by Storm. So it's kind of cool you have her as your number two, because certain things he does, I based it off of how she looked and stuff. Because he doesn't control weather, but he controls electricity and the lightning and all that aspect. And so some of it was influenced by her and just how she looks when she's doing things. So that's so cool that you actually picked her.
She's great. And like for me, in my next book, I have a character that can control and manipulate weather. And I've always found that to be, a really fascinating superpower, and how could that could be. I also really love superpowers that can be used for good, like offense and defense. And I feel like controlling the weather can be both, because like one of the things that Storm, Rogue almost made this list is why I said
Rogue is too, though.
I love Rogue. But one thing that Storm was doing before Professor X came knocking and asked her to be in the X-Men was she was helping tribes near where she was hanging out make sure their crops were watered and stuff like that. And she was revered as like a demigod, and Xavier had to come and be like, hey, by the way, you're actually a mutant.
Like, you're not
maybe
a god.
come work for me. And she was like, yeah, good idea. Okay, cool. That's the Cliff Notes from Storm's how she got into X-Men.
That's all you'll ever need to know.
Yeah, all you ever need to know. I just thought it was awesome in that she rescued T'Challa. And one of her only weaknesses is claustrophobia. Didn't know that.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah, that's her weakness, claustrophobia. And there have been a few times, when she's been in battles with the X-Men where her claustrophobia put the team at peril, So everyone needs a weakness. Yeah, everyone needs a weakness. Like Superman's got
kryptonite.
Yeah, and then Batman's got bad moods. I don't know. He's
like
rich.
anything that just crushes technology, I
guess. Hypnotism? I don't know.
Bad judgment.
Bad judgment? That's a good one.
Bad judgment.
He have a weakness. He's kind of like Tony Stark. He's like,
maybe, because to be honest,
that's
like
true.
he doesn't.
He's immortal.
Yeah, he doesn't have any power. Ooh, my camera just moved on it. But he gets everything from the fact that he has a crap ton of money and he can pretty much make anything he wants. But if you catch him on a day without a suit, don't be wrong, he's definitely a good fighter and all that jazz. But he's still human. Like,
it's true.
He can bleed. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important too when you're writing a character or enjoying a character. You do want them to have a weakness.
Mm-hmm.
We enjoy stories that have conflict, but if you have this, meta-human, superhuman that is so all-powerful, where's the conflict, In the case of Dr. Manhattan, his conflict is that he no longer really has a tether to humanity, and it's kind of about how he falls away from that and how, how do you get something that omnipotent to care about the small problems of humans? And so there's a plot in there, but like in terms of these superhero powers, it's like, you do have to kind of build in a weakness of some kind, or where's your conflict, which is why we read stories. And that's something I noticed in everyone. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, that's one thing. No, you're fine. No, that was one thing I tried to be mindful when I was writing Aiden's character, because I realized at one point I hadn't really given him, like, he has a lot of mental health issues he struggles through with anxiety and depression and all that. Mm-hmm. But like when it came to his powers, I almost made him too OP. Mm-hmm. And then, I had to think about things and I ended up figuring out a weakness for him. But I was like, this is not going to be good if he's like, oh yeah, I'm just so powerful, I can do all these random things and nothing will touch. Because it does get to a point And sometimes I think that's what Superman too, even though he does have the kryptonite as a weakness, but there's like,
Mhm.
you know, if you don't have that, no one can really stop him. You know, like he just is so overpowered, and
Mhm.
sometimes that can just almost be a little boring. So it's like, okay, they
Mhm.
just have this other power, and as this other power just that keeps just popping up, so they
Yeah.
can't be defeated. It's like, okay, I get it. He's
Yeah.
powerful. That's
Yeah.
cool.
And I think too, what makes that compelling is that here is this very, very powerful metahuman, but he's been raised by these salt of the earth, simple folks, who found
Yeah.
him. And that is the conflict too, is that he is this all powerful, crazy alien, but, he desperately wants to fit in and have that normal life. And also the conflict of, well, am I even deserving of that? Because and to quote Spider-Man, when the bad things happen and I don't do anything, they happen because of me. You know what I mean? When you have the ability to rescue and stop, they happen because of you. Like Dr. Manhattan, he in The Watchmen, they got mad at him because he met President Kennedy, and again, multiple timelines going all at once. He knew President Kennedy was going to get assassinated, and he didn't say anything or stop anything because he's like, I'm beyond, But it's like that. That's a thing too. When you're that powerful, if you don't use your powers, then are you complicit with the bad things that happen? And that's a big question. I think every
Yeah,
superhero might have to ask themselves.
well, that's almost kind of like what some questions arose, at the end of the last Avengers movie
Hmm.
with the whole Captain America thing. Like, it was like, okay, so he went back and then decided to live a happy life, which he
Hmm.
highly deserved, don't get me wrong. But at the same point, is like he knew all these things were going to happen and he
Hmm.
just let them happen. But then it's like, well, then that's where it
Hmm.
gets all this like timeline crazy stuff involved. And it's
Yeah,
like,
is he in a different timeline? Yeah,
I can't start thinking about this too hard or I'm going to go mad. So it's
yeah.
like, I need to stop.
And the funny thing too about that movie, Infinity War and Endgame, the two head writers and the directors actually have, and this is totally just nerd alert, something Tina knows, they have completely different takes on the time travel that happens within those movies,
Yeah.
which is very interesting to me because moving forward, the MCU is really like Loki's series was all about branching timelines, and
Mm-hmm.
WandaVision is about a Nexus being who is a Nexus being is the same being in any timeline, in any dimension. And timelines and dimensions are different. Um,
Yeah.
um, so I think we're about to see the MCU go way into space and way quantum, which I'm excited for. But it's a mind trip.
Well, yeah, because even like in Winter Soldier and Falcon, I know there were some questions like, well, where is Captain America during this time? Because
Mhm.
there's so many things going on revolving around Captain America. And I read something where even the producer is like, I don't even know where he is right now. Like, no,
Yeah,
like it's like, oh, okay, we don't know. Like, is he dead? Because that's why there's like a reference about him being like on the moon because
yeah,
they have no clue. They don't
yeah.
know.
They
And I'm
didn't
like,
know.
that's kind of, but at the same time, kind of like, oh, okay,
And
that's cool.
And when they said that he was on the moon, I was like, "Oh, it's Dr. Manhattan." I'm like, "Wait, no, that's DC. Sorry, they'll never meet." Um,
Yeah.
but to me too, like them not knowing where Cap is like no one, not even Kevin Feige, has really written where. You know what I mean? They haven't made a
Yeah.
decision about where he is. Is he on Sword? Like, is he in space? I hope he's just living, kicking it with Peggy. But I guess Peggy's at this point, Peggy's passed, and he's like
Yeah,
a
she's
widower. Yeah, so
yeah.
what is old Cap gonna do? I mean, let him have his retirement at this point. Jeez.
Well, that's why I thought like first they might make first it kind of came off like he might have been deceased. Like that's first what
Hmm.
I was thinking. But then the way things come in, it's like no, they don't know if he's dead, if he's not, if he wherever he is. And I was like, okay, I guess that's cool because part of me was just curious. Like I wonder what Captain America
Hmm.
feels about seeing all this. But again, maybe he's well, OG Captain America. But I'm
Yeah,
like, maybe he's just not caring and he's living in a bunker somewhere. I
yeah.
don't know.
Who knows? To me, that
Yep.
means like they haven't written it. But again, who am I to know? Um, okay, so we've done our 2 and 3s. You're Superman and Batman. I'm Dr.
Super
Manhattan and
Man.
Storm. Huh? Superman.
Superman and Spider.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Superman and Spider-Man.
No,
My
you're
apologies,
right.
Spider-Man.
Very close.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I kept saying Rogue.
Batman.
Yeah, that's why I kept saying Rogue instead of Storm. I'm like, they were so close. I just have this very distinct memory of having a really holographic X-Men like trading card of Storm and like showing it to my grandmother and her just being like very horrified by how busty she was. Because, you know, they had those really tight
That's
suits.
like a very grandma thing.
Yeah, very grandma, like, oh, look at the boobs on that one.
My.
Yeah. And I'm like, it's Storm from the X-Men. Take it seriously. So I'm dying to know, who's your number one? Who's your ride or die favorite? Got you into superheroes. You just love it forever. It's your comfy sweater. Number one superhero.
Well, first I have to say I'm very disappointed I don't have a Funko Pop for this one because I pre-ordered one months ago and it came back. I'm like, damn you, Amazon. So I don't have a Funko Pop for this one. But actually, this one is a new favorite of mine. And again, like I said, I'm big into the movies and the shows. It actually is the Scarlet Witch.
Yes!
I always loved her. Like, I've known about her for quite some time, actually before the movies. Not like a horribly lot, but she's always been, you know, random things I've looked up. She's always been there. I'm like, oh, she's a cool character. And I really enjoyed her in the movies and everything. But what made me absolutely bump her, like zoom her to number one and fall in love with her was WandaVision. Mainly, like, just how the mental health aspect of everything, and showing her how she handles things. And, you know, like mental health is such a big thing in my book. You know, her going through everything and, you know, it just made me fall in love with her and being like, I just want to give you a hug and eat Ben and Jerry's with you. Like, it would be a great time. And, you know, then, you know, learn also about, you know, the crazy things about that she goes through with, you know, having these kids. And then, you know, I guess I was reading the comic books, like, you know, the kids are in other dimensions and stuff like that. And it's like, well, how does that even work? Like, with, it's just, she's so intense because she's pretty much like an Infinity Stone herself. And it's like,
Nexus being.
Yeah, I mean, it's just insanity, and she's just so badass, and I just love it. And, you know, in the end, when she owns everything and, you know, she accepts everything, it's just so wonderful to see her step into that. And then I'm so curious to see where she goes from this point, especially, you know, in the movies and everything. I mean, you know, especially the way it ended, you know, it just opened up for the whole Doctor Strange multiverse thing.
Yes.
Because, you know, I know she worked a lot with Doctor Strange and all that. So I'm like, I want to see that relationship happen. You know, of course, I'm so curious about what the heck's going to happen with, like, you know, technically the OG Vision, he's out there, you know, and, you know, the Vision he created pretty much gave him all the memories back. And it's like, what does that mean? And it's like, oh my gosh, that's going to be a whole nother mental thing for her to go through when because, I mean, we know eventually she's going to find out, but it's like, it's just, oh, I can just say I absolutely love, like, the fight between the Visions and WandaVision, because it was just like a fight of the mind.
Yes.
Like, what they were talking, I'm just like, yes, I love this. Intellectual fight. Yes, give it to me.
Yes.
But, yeah, it was just after watching WandaVision, and I know some people hate it on the first couple episodes, but I absolutely loved them. But it might help that I binged everything in one night. Yeah, I mean, I love the campiness of it. I think it was also because I knew more was going to come, so I just, like, you know, I'm going to enjoy the little lightheartedness we're going to get here, because I know this is going to go deep.
That's all you're getting.
At some point.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, her struggles with losing her brother and her whole traumatic childhood with everything.
So traumatic. I mean, that was a tearjerker episode, by the way. I think it's like second to last episode. Yeah. It goes through all of her history in a way that, you know, the movies really only got to touch on her. And so they go back and, like, revisit these moments. Oh my God. The one where is like, grief is love persevering. Like, first of all, as a writer, I was like, why didn't I write that line?
I know.
That's amazing. That's so beautiful. Every writer in the world just died that moment being like, damn it, I didn't write that. And it's amazing. And Paul Bettany does the best job delivering it. And that whole series, I'm with you. My husband didn't like it in the beginning because it was so weird. But I love the House of M vibes coming from it. I knew it was going to get, we're going to get some clarification, but it's Scarlet Witch, so it's going to be weird. Yeah. And just like as a little spoiler, I actually had Scarlet Witch for my villains list next week, which is a fun twist because she's a villain
Oh,
and a hero.
yeah,
You know,
that's true. I did
you-
look up stuff about that.
yeah,
Yeah,
like we could have also included Loki on the superheroes list. Like that is also
yeah.
one of the great things about comics is that you do have these anti-hero villains that kind of switch. And Scarlet Witch is definitely one of them. Her dad in the comics is Magneto. That's not been confirmed in the MCU movies, but in lore,
Mhm.
in MCU lore, her dad's actually Magneto, and he's also someone that's on my short list for villains. I
Yeah.
haven't finalized my list yet, but
I know,
about it.
I know for my villains, I know who my number one is, but
Ooh.
the other two, I'm just like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
Because I
And I
keep
take
feeling like,
questions so literally too. I was like, top in what way? Like top is like my number one, top influences, top that I love. Like so yeah.
well, enough about my number one. What's your number one?
So my number one is based off of, and this is for my international folks, it's based off of the comic book Asterix and Obelix. It is a 60-year-old comic. It's Belgian and French, and it is about, it's a historical comic about this little village of Gauls that are resisting the Roman invasion. It's like set in 50 BC, and Caesar's like one of the antagonists. I highly recommend anyone that think it's a funny comic, first of all. And so, like, they get all their superpowers from a magic potion. That's how they fight off the Romans. And like, the town, like, and their names, it's such French humor. Their names are all puns. Like the doctor in town is Getafix. Obelix doesn't get any potion because he fell into the cauldron as a baby, and so he doesn't get to have any potion. But he has a dog named Dogmatix. And I think I was like really young when I first watched it. Like, I think my mom like recorded. We had like Disney for 6 months when I was a kid, and she recorded 6 months worth of Disney on VHS, and then that's what I grew up on was the same
The good
6
old
months of Disney, which explains everything about me. Um,
Don't say so.
yeah, that's why I love time loops because that's what I watched as a time loop of Disney growing up. But I felt weird choosing it, but also that's like in my heart it's like the storytelling. It's Asterix and the 12 Tasks. He does the 12 Tasks of Hercules. It's such a fun comic, and they made it into some animated movies. And I think Asterix and the 12 Tasks is one that is dubbed in English. But yeah, Asterix and Obelix. I know people don't know a lot about it, but I encourage you to look it up. It's hilarious and amazing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think I've actually ever heard of that one, so that's something new for me. I'll have to check out. Actually.
Yeah, and like also, your son might actually be really into it. It's a really funny cartoon. Like in the 12 Tasks of Hercules or of Asterix, there's one where he has to get a document signed at a government building, and it's just like him going up and down stairs talking to different people behind windows and them sending him to another stairwell. And it's just like that kind of humor. Like it's just really it's hilarious. Yeah. Like the mayor's wife name in the village that's resisting the Romans is called Impedimentia. Like the names are really funny. So yeah, Asterix and Obelix, look it up. You won't regret it. It's a 60-year-old French-Belgian comic. I think you all will find it hilarious. So.
Okay, I definitely have to look that up because I've never heard of it, and I have to admit, like sometimes I'm like I do feel like I had a very shallow childhood. I wasn't like I didn't. My main thing was Nickelodeon. Like that's all. I feel like we had the basic channels, and back then it was like Nickelodeon and Cartoon Network, and
yes,
I used to go on Nickelodeon and watch maybe like Scooby Doo and Courage the Cowardly Dog on Cartoon Network. But a lot of these things sometimes people talk about, and I'm just like that was the thing. There's so many movies like I haven't randomly, but like I've never seen like E.T., Dark Crystal, like so many movies. People are like, "Ooh." And I'm just like, I got wrapped up in Smallville later on. I don't know.
I love Smallville, and again, Asterix and Obelix is a weird stretch for me, but it's like I have such a very fond young memory of being like, That's so cool. And that I feel like paved the way for X-Men and all those other comics that I'm so into. And the weird
Uh-huh.
zany humor. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think it's so true. Like what you get to experience as a younger kid, it influences your taste for the rest of your life. So, and that's where you
Definitely.
see a lot of the stuff from the 90s coming back around. I'm like, oh, all those kids are adults now with expendable income. So, yeah,
Yes,
we're going to make a Trolls
exactly.
movie.
What's just with certain Funko Pops and stuff that have come out. I'm like, they're doing all this because they know us 90 kids have money now we can buy it. Even though I have to admit, I think we've only bought like a handful of Funko Pops this year because we've really tried to
Hmm.
condense down with the spending and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But sometimes I see what they release. I'm like, I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know who has money right now. I get it. I
Hmm.
get it.
Hmm. It's all
Like
in
they
the
released,
game.
yeah, like they released all like these 90 like Barbie dolls, and they were kind of based off of like the McDonald toys that I used to collect when I was
Uh-huh.
little. And part of me is like,
Meals.
you're trying, you're teasing me, but I'm not
Yeah.
gonna give in to you.
Totally, totally. Um, and so I want to ask, who among the superheroes we named, or are there any honorable mentions that you'd like to just mention that didn't make the cut, didn't make the top three, that you're like, I just want to mention them?
Definitely Batman, Phoenix, especially Dark Phoenix. I
Hmm.
love Dark Phoenix.
Very, very close to being on my list as well.
Mhm. Um, oh my gosh, I always just go back between those two.
Hmm.
Why am I drawing a blank right now?
I put
I
you on
do
the
say
spot.
I love Green Arrow. I
Me
didn't watch
too.
much of the newer Green Arrow, but I really love him in the Smallville version of Green Arrow. I love him
Okay.
there. Um, he was a huge one for me. Wolverine. Oh my God, yes.
Almost made my
Hugh,
list.
Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Give it to me every day. Oh
Yes.
my God. They're
Yeah.
never going to find a better guy to play Wolverine. I don't care. Just no. But yeah, Wolverine. But he's one of those two, like, he's borderline a hero and can be a villain, in the right
Yes.
setting sometimes, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But yeah, I absolutely I love Wolverine. Oh my God,
Yeah.
why wasn't he in my top three? You know
He
what? Okay,
almost made my top three.
I'm kicking out
Almost.
Superman and I'm putting Wolverine, guys.
Yeah.
Switch is done.
We had to limit ourselves to three and really think about it. But Wolverine definitely was in there, and Storm and Wolverine also are obviously friends. Um,
Yeah.
fun hair fact for all of you. Storm originally, she got her mohawk style when she went to Logan's wedding in Japan and hung out with Yukio and was really inspired by her style and approach to life and decided
You know all these random facts, and I
I
love
just
it.
know like that's it. That's another superpower.
You
I
need
know
to go out with
random.
coffee, and you need to tell me everything you know, because I don't, I want to know so much more. I don't. Sometimes I want to deep dive so much more that I'm so worried like I'm gonna get swamped in this and lost in it, and I'm trying to do 50 million other things. But I'm just like, it's so fun to know all those random little
I
facts
know.
about.
I love factoids. I'm great on trivia. But that's about it. That's my other superpower. I can find things that I know useless facts about comics. But yeah, I enjoy that kind of stuff. And I think too, those little details, again, for writers, those little details are what makes a story real and believable.
Mhm.
That Storm decided to go and get a mohawk at Logan's wedding because he was inspired by
Yeah,
it. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And
and
then,
their friendship too, and they
yeah,
can connect at high
yeah,
levels. No, 100%. Yeah,
totally.
but I think right now those are probably the most that come to mind. I mean, of course, like I love Iron Man. I mean, all the general ones like that. I've always loved them. Oh my God, Black Panther. I love Black Panther.
T'Challa. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't.
Wakanda forever.
Yeah, there's a couple. I love Falcon. Oh well, now the
Well,
new.
Anthony Mackie signed up, and he's going to be in the next Captain America, and I am here for it. Oh,
Yeah, I can't wait to see it. I absolutely have loved his character throughout it all. Then watching when they came out, Winter Soldier
hmm.
and Falcon, I was like, yes. And I have to admit, I wasn't sure what to expect from it.
Me neither.
But when I watched it, I was like, this blew my expectations out of the water with everything that happened with it.
Hmm.
And it was great. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, who would you would do for honorable honorable mentions?
I know, right? Obviously
Okay.
Rogue, since I actually accidentally called Storm Rogue. Rogue was definitely in there. I love her. The fact that her powers prohibit her from having close interpersonal relationships or even touching people, I think is such
Yeah.
an interesting conflict where she has basically this pretty awesome superpower where she can absorb other mutants' powers. In fact, if y'all ever watched the comic books, the animated series in the 90s, which I did, of X-Men, the reason that she can fly is because in one episode she absorbed Miss Marvel's powers. So Rogue
Oh.
actually did not originally fly, and whatever happened, and I don't remember the exact things, but I think she went in a coma, or Miss Marvel did, and it was like she almost like took control of her, and so that's why. Because usually her Rogue superpower, it fades off. You know what I mean? She absorbs your power, but it fades off. But Captain Marvel's, remained because of the intense energy exchange or something like that, I'm sure. So Rogue was almost on there. Vision was almost on there. Because I
Oh,
loved
really?
Vision. I loved in WandaVision the ship of Theseus argument that he had with himself. And I also
Yeah.
loved how Paul Bettany totally trolled all of us Marvel fans, being like, oh, the last cameo is going to be a crazy one. You're not going to believe who's cameoing with me in the same scene in the season finale. Spoiler alert, it's Paul Bettany. He got all of us. He punked all of us. Because everyone was like,
Yeah.
is it Mephisto? I don't know. No, it's
Yeah.
um,
It's like,
it's me.
okay.
Hmm. So he was there, and one character that I am super excited to see in the MCU that I also almost made the list is Adam Warlock, and he's another really crazy, weird celestial, not celestial in the MCU
Mhm.
sense, but interesting being. He's even worn the Infinity Gauntlet at one time, like wielded it. He
Mhm.
has a really crazy character trip because he can time travel. But there's a version of him from the future that's like the evil twin version, you know. So
God love evil twin versions.
yeah, and it's also like that's my future too. So the evil twins in the
Yeah.
future. So somewhere along the line, things don't go well, and
You're like,
again, we have this really powerful being, Adam Warlock, really, really powerful. So just to gloss over him a little bit, but yeah, he almost made the list of top superheroes. There's just so many; it's hard to contain it to three, but we had to
and
just to keep things moving along.
yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, sometimes you watch something and you're like, oh my God, I love this character. It's like I said, I'm so huge in just the movies and the like those
Yes,
universes right now. And it's so hard to be like, oh my God, this is so badass, and
yes,
bumping people around. I don't know. I feel like these are going to be my top three for quite like Spider-Man, Superman. Like I almost felt like, well, like these are so. These are usually a lot of people's favorites, but I'm like they inspired so much
yes,
of my
yes,
love of heroes. I was like
absolutely. They're like
they have to be on here.
yeah,
And there's a one. Superman was definitely like my number one, and then Batman was my number two because they were just so. I love the older Batman movies and everything, especially the Adam West ones. Like I will
yeah.
say, like the campy and that one, like with the whole shark bomb and everything. Yes, give
Uh-huh.
it to me every day. I will watch that every day.
Yes,
But
totally,
it's like
totally.
it's so hard, like just to narrow things down sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, as we see more and more, we're going to see, you know, 10 years ago we couldn't imagine 10, 22 movies that have an overarching plot, but comic
Yeah,
books have been doing that for decades. So
right.
I'm really, again, we have the technology and the attention span and people that are devoted like me and you to seeing these stories and that continuity that they bring in the MCU. I really love, and also in the DC animated movies as well. They have a lot of
Yeah,
continuity.
DC, if they could do what they do right with the animated movies and their live action movies, they
Yeah.
would have it. But I feel like so many times they get wrapped up in the fact they want to catch up to Marvel. They
You
just try to
can't,
force so many
you
things. And I'm
can't
like,
do
it
that.
took time. Yeah, I'm like, it took time for
It took a
Marvel to build
decade.
this up. And
Yeah.
and what Marvel had also, like, their casting has been on point. Like Robert Downey Jr., my husband and I were just talking about this earlier. He just got out of jail and from rehab and everything. He wasn't really well-known actor at that
They
point,
took
but
a chance
they
on him.
because they, he does embody Tony Stark. Like I couldn't imagine
Absolutely.
they playing Tony
Absolutely.
Stark. Um,
Yeah.
Stark. But you
I'm
know what I
ready.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, even the gentleman they just cast for Shang-Chi, oh my God, I forget his name. But he was a photo stock
Mm-hmm.
model. And like, has never really acted that much before or anything like that. And I mean, it smashed records this last weekend.
I can't. Have you
Like,
seen it yet? I haven't seen it.
no, because I'm so cheap and we don't get many date nights, I'm probably gonna wait until it's on Disney Plus. Just like I'm waiting for Black Widow to become available on Disney
Mm-hmm.
Plus, like all access. Right now it's on premium,
Yeah.
but I think it's available. I think it's like October 6th, I think it
That's
is.
really soon.
But we're actually, if you have Disney Plus, and if you're a nerd like me who wants to watch the movies in timeline order, not in the order they were released,
Yes.
Disney Plus has them in timeline order.
They do.
So it's like, yeah, because we just discovered that we do movie nights every Friday night, and we've been watching them. So it's like the first one's Captain America, and then it's Captain Marvel, and then it's Iron Man 2, and the next one we're on is Thor. Then I think the one after Thor, I think it's Iron Man 3, if I'm remembering correctly.
I'm so curious. Oh, go ahead.
It's so fun to watch them in actual timeline order. You know what I mean? Because the actual first movie that was released was Iron Man, and it's fun to see them in order and just how they reference each other in that way. And it's I don't know, it's been really cool to watch. So
yeah, I wonder too when Eternals is released if that will change the timeline at all. Because a lot of that, it looks like from the preview, the Eternals have been here for a minute.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I do love that feature on Disney Plus. Yeah, I'm so excited. It's going to be weird. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to wrap this up. This has been a lovely What's Your Superpower premiere episode with you. And next week, we're going to be here at the same bat time, same bat channel, 7 p.m. Eastern, and we're discussing
villains.
We both love villains. They're our favorites. There are some really wonderful ones. We encourage you.
It's so hard for me to pick the other two, man. It's
so hard. But you know what? It's not a permanent list. It's just to kind of give you all a taste of what we're down with. Again, we're both indie authors, so all of this fandom influences our writings. And if you like any of the characters or plots or stuff that you've heard today, Miss A.M. McPherson here has a book coming out September 21st, The Guardian's Daughter, which is a superhero romance. And I have Shadow Glass, Time Magic, Blood Magic coming out November 1st with a prequel part of the book coming out September 20th. So both of us, our love of superheroes definitely goes into our other part-time gig of writing for a living. And we really appreciate you stopping by and listening to us just geek out about all the wonderful things about superheroes. Woo!
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we'll see all of you and you next week at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Yes. Thank you, Tina.
Awesome. Bye, y'all.
Bye.